I grew up in Israel. I served for 5 years as a humanitarian officer in the IDF. I served in Hebron, Ramallah, and Gaza a little bit. And I was working with international organizations, with the UN, the Red Cross, seeing all of this bias that we're seeing now. I've seen it years ago. And then in 2000...
So what is a humanitarian? What is a humanitarian officer?
Humanitarian officer... contrary to what people...
Americans. We're just nodding like we know. Yeah. But that's interesting. It's a designation. What is that?
So there's a whole unit in the Israeli army that our job is to take care of the civil aspect of fighting a war. And it's actually a very unique unit. Back when I was in the army, I served from 2003 till 2008. And during this time, we had visits from American armies trying to learn from us how to deal with civilian population. And so this whole unit is called COGAT. All they're doing is to take care of the humanitarian aspect, be in touch with local Palestinian leaders, following the Palestinian media, not for intelligence, but just more to understand the humanitarian need from the understanding that we have responsibility for the civilians that Hamas clearly doesn't care.
And so Hamas has a humanitarian organization as well. What's their... Obviously they don't. I mean, this is just... even hearing that there is such a thing, I don't even think is as known as it should be.
I had no idea that existed, yeah.
Which kind of sheds light on, I don't know, how do people... are not aware of such a thing. That's incredible. Because somebody asked me, I was on another podcast and I was asked is the IDF moral? I got this big question. And I said it's the fact that the IDF makes mistakes in war and that there are tragedies and completely unfortunate circumstances that are caused support, the fact that they're acknowledged as mistakes, the fact that there are investigations, the fact that there are these elements within the IDF to contend with these issues highlights the moral superiority of the IDF.
Right.
Not their perfect score on no civilian casualties or collateral damage, but the fact that they have it to begin with. The idea of a humanitarian group or entity within Hamas is completely, you never even think of it.
I could also see you going the other way with that, though, having had that experience coming out, being like, wow, the IDF isn't doing enough. This is untenable. How did you come out of that experience?
Well, I always pride myself with being able to hold several truths. I know it's very unique these days to believe in more than one thing.
Right.
But I think that the IDF, I think that generally armies are always, their job is different than police force because they kill. Armies are meant to kill and protect. I think the IDF is unique in the sense that it's a compulsory army that everyone joins, and there's... The job of the army is not to attack, it's to defend. I mean, that's in their name. That's why they're changing the name. All those anti-Israel people, instead of saying Israel Defense Force, they say Israel Occupation Force.
Yeah, IOF. You haven't seen that? It's all over. I'm like, IOF, they can't even spell. And then I realized, okay, they're doing it intentionally.
Exactly. And I think it's all part of this propaganda. But I've seen the work of the army, and I know that there's a lot of mistakes. And I was in a very unique position because I was working to help Palestinians to build infrastructure, hospitals, waterway site. All of our focus was to uplift the Palestinian local communities in every region that I worked in. And because we believe that through that we can achieve peace, the more they would prosper, the better the chance to bring peace to both of our people would be. And I've seen that there was mistakes. I was chasing after the commanders of units in my area with the Geneva Convention, teaching them and they didn't want to be bothered with this. They wanted to do their job. But the fact that there was a unit like mine, that I was there, that gives me, and I think to this day, I know that I'm on the right side of history.
It's almost like an internal affairs on the ground, holding everybody accountable to a standard.
Right.
Because obviously humans are human beings, and in war and when everyone's, has a certain mission, you can lose sight of that. So that's your job, to be the even temperament of keeping things accountable.
Yeah, can put it this way too, yeah.
What's it called in Hebrew? What's that?
It's called Matpash, Minale Teum Palot HaMishra Bashtachim, the coordinator of government activities in the territories. And it was started after the Oslo Accords because in 1993, later on in 1996, there wasn't... management of the West Bank was completely controlled by Israel, just like Gaza is today. And all the conversation about the day after, everyone are asking who's going to manage the civil aspect, because a population needs someone to take care of sewage, someone to take care of building, facilities and taking care of basic needs. And that's what COGAT was doing after the Oslo Accords. When Israel withdrew out from 50% of the West Bank, it passed it on to the Palestinian Authority, and they are responsible now for the civil aspect in 50% of the West Bank. The other 50% is controlled by COGAT, and COGAT is still controlled civil-wise. And we're still in touch with the Palestinian Authority and supporting them. The goal of COGAT is to improve Palestinian lives.
Is there more cooperation than people realize between Palestinian Authority and COGAT?
In the West Bank, yeah.
Yeah, sure. In terms of perception, There's this narrative about Israel as this oppressive occupying force, but really on the ground you're there seeing cooperation between government entities?
100%, yeah. I mean, when I was in the army, we reestablished when I served in Hebron, the Hebron Security Committee. We had the head of the Palestinian Security Forces, the head of the local IDF unit, and the head of the international force that was there, and we just coordinated everything relating to security. Palestinian security forces are, they're giving parking tickets in Ramallah. It's a civilized area. It's not like what people would think looking from afar.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And what about shifting to Gaza, where all the attention is right now, as the source of hostility? Like, did you ever work in Gaza Strip as well? And is there currently Kogat there, or is it even while it's under Hamas rule there's been?
Yeah, but the difference is that they're serving from the outside, so they coordinate with local counterparts from the Palestinian.
Who are they?
Right.
Who are the local?
So it's like heads of hospitals. It's head of local communities or families that are powerful that they can speak to. They are aware that a lot of them are under the control of Hamas and they can't really say everything they want to say. And it's also following the trends on social media, speaking to the international organizations that are working with the Palestinians in Gaza and coordinating with them. I mean, it's ridiculous because I see. When I worked in this unit, I remember the Red Cross was so angry every time we were coordinating buses of Palestinians coming from Gaza and the West Bank into Israel to see their families, because we are obligated by the international law and the Geneva Convention to facilitate visits of families to. If a terrorist was being captured from Gaza and is held in Israel, we need to make sure that the family gets to see them. And of course, all the other conditions that the meals in the Israeli prisons are amazing. Not that I wish anyone would be in prison, but it's really, the conditions are amazing.
Right?
Medicine, access to higher education. They finish a PhD in prison, a lot of those Palestinian convicted terrorists. But we had to facilitate those
Probably
visits.
Nicer than some of the hotels.
I mean,
Israel. The pillows, and even at the King David, the pillows are rough.
They could be doing better.
Squeegees. Come on, they could do better than that.
Yeah, but the Red Cross would be so.
And these are Israeli Arab citizens in Israel who have family.
No,
who are they visiting?
Palestinians from Gaza or the West Bank that have family members held in
Israeli prison.
Yeah.
Oh, so they get visit. So Palestinians in Gaza have visitation rights to Israeli to terrorists that were captured in Israel. They get visitation rights.
Israel has obligation to facilitate it according to the Second Geneva Convention, and it's executing it amazingly. I don't think in any other country in the world this has been done this way, but Israel is making sure that it's happening. And I remember speaking to the International Red Cross, to my colleagues that I was working with, and they would get furious if there was 5 minutes delay in the buses, or if the Palestinians didn't get the visa permit on time and one family member couldn't go 1 week and he had to wait for another week. They would threaten us with public with PR campaigns and taking it further. And now they're saying nothing when hundreds of hostages are not seeing their families, not getting access to medicine, being raped, attacked. We know all those terrible things, but they're saying nothing. And that's what really shocking to me.
You mean the organizations within Israel that are on your case for making the Red Cross exactly. and these third parties that are trying to enforce this humanitarian when it goes one way, but not the other way?
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Where do you think that comes from?
That Israel is definitely held to a different standard. We know that. We should be. We are a democracy, but we should be held to a different standards than Hamas. But I think it's a different standard to any Western democracy. Look at how long did it take America to find Osama bin Laden? It took them over 10 years. And in a matter of few months, we're already getting pressure to finish the operation, to eliminate Sinwar. Why didn't you get Sinwar? But we got so many other Hamas leaders, but no one is talking about that either. It's as if Israel is just killing everyday civilians when it's actually attacking Hamas terrorists.
I love how all these podcast hosts and commentators have suddenly become experts on military tactics. Like the way they talk about these things, they shouldn't be doing it this way. And it's like, you can not like the optics of war, you can find it off-putting, but for you to suggest who you've never seen combat, that you know how to do this. It's like, by comparison, you watch sports commentators talk about how people should play the game. They don't know how the game is played, but the stakes are so much higher in war, and you don't know how to execute a war, and they have it with such authority.
Yeah, before the ground operation, all Sagar and Jetty was very much like, Israel has no idea what they're getting into. And I'm like, maybe they do. They've been doing it for 75 years. Yeah. Maybe they do.
So here's my question. You have this sort of perspective of actually what goes on.